Hi guys, so it's Mrs. Walker here, Head of Science and also one of the A-Level Biology teachers. I'm here today just to talk to you about why you might study A-Level Biology and what does it mean to study A-Level Biology? What kind of topics will you cover? What is the course like? And what are the kind of things that you could get out of it? What university courses you could go on to? What careers would A-Level Biology be relevant to? So when we start looking at the A-Level Biology specification and the different bits of content that you're going to learn when you study A-Level Biology, it looks like a list like this. We study the first half in year 12 and the second half in year 13. But actually that's quite a dry list, and there are page numbers there because it links to the specification, which I'm going to put up with this video, so that if you want to go into more detail and actually see the real fine detail of what you'll be learning when you study A-Level Biology, then that will be there for you so you can have a look. But I'm going to talk about it in a kind of more general sense now, so you get a feel for some of the ways in which the biology relates together. Okay, so when we're thinking about what does it mean to study biology, I think it always works actually to take it back to what does the word biology mean. You've got the bio and you've got the logy. Well, bio actually means living, and logy means to study. So basically what we're talking about is the study of life. And when we start thinking about it in that sense, then I think actually it's about considering the layers in which things are living. We all kind of start with the idea that a living thing, an organism, and we often think about, studying things to do with that, such as, maybe parts of our body. You might learn about the heart and the circulatory system. We might learn about, your digestive system. And we go into more depth about those in A-Level Biology. But we also learn about something maybe more interesting, like your muscles and nerves, and how do all of these things work together to make you a living thing that can move and walk around. So we know that the heart and digestive system are needed to make your muscles work. So we build up a really great understanding of how an organism works in A-Level Biology. But the thing with studying something is that realistically, you should always be asking yourself, why? Why does that work like that? So really, we have to understand this at a smaller level. What are these things made up of? And you all know that, an organism can be a cell, or it can be multicellular. We are multicellular organisms, so we learn about the cell in more depth than you would have done at GCSE. We talk about, things happening at a cellular level. So we learn about respiration, photosynthesis. We talk about what makes these muscles and these nerves work at a cellular level, but that's not good enough really, because, well, what makes a cell a cell? What actually helps a cell do all of the jobs? So actually, although we learn about biology at an organism level, we actually have to learn about it at an even smaller level. We have to learn about it at a molecular level. So we talk about the molecules. The very first thing that you learn in biology is actually about biomolecules. So we learn about things like carbohydrates, we learn about proteins, and we learn about fats. We learn about them on a molecular level so that we can always explain what is happening then at a cellular level. Now, one of the key biomolecules that I've just mentioned was proteins. Now, you will have talked about proteins in terms of them being some of these key, key tissues for heart and digestive system and muscles. We all think of muscles as being full of protein. Yeah, they are, but actually, they are proteins not just being structural, also play important roles as enzymes and making these things happen for us at a cellular level. So we're always going back and explaining what is happening at an organism, not just by describing what is happening in the organism, but by going back and explaining what is happening at a biomolecular level, and even then talking about actually, well, how are these proteins and how are these things made using genes and DNA, and how does that work? How does a code of A's, T's, G's, and C's actually hold the instructions to make an entire organism like you, something so complex? And actually, I find that quite mind-blowing that a small change at that molecular level will make a massive change to maybe some proteins, and that will make a massive change to how the organism works. But you'll notice I've only filled up one kind of side of our biology piece of paper right now, and that's because whilst we're important at an organism level, we're not the only thing that's around. The reality is that there are other organisms and we all interact with those organisms. So that kind of takes us to an ecosystem level, so larger than us. You know, how these different organisms play a role in the ecosystem, how we humans play a role, but also how do other organisms interact with each other. About things like farming, talking about ecology, and learning about how in other ways organisms interact. Now, so if this is a general kind of map of some of the key ways in which we study biology, and as I said earlier, I will be putting the specification up with this video so that you can by all means go and see the absolute nitty-gritty of everything you will be learning and studying biology. But I want to give you kind of a rough idea of how do all of these ideas come together in something that I think is probably quite relevant right now, and that is the idea that actually, how do we understand what is going on in a like coronavirus? From an A-level biology point of view, my current year 12s have found it really interesting that we've been going back and talking about this virus as it's been going on, because what we've been learning about is on a molecular level. You know, we've been learning about the structure of viruses. Okay. From an organism point of view, we've been talking about our immune system. Another really important part of the A-level biology spec. We've been talking about how our body responds to viruses and thinking about proteins and how on a virus, on a virus we have antigens on the surface of those viruses. And our body will recognize those as being not our type and will then produce, our bodies produce antibodies from our white blood cells. And that those antibodies are Y-shaped proteins. You're hearing that word come up a lot right now. So when we're talking then about how our immune system responds to a virus, all of this has been an important part of our A-level specification, and we talk about the immune response in great detail. But it's been interesting to actually relate that to actually something that's going on in our lives right now, and how are we actually studying how scientists are actually working on things like a vaccine. Now, even something as simple as a virus, antigens, antibodies, all of this, which you think is really at a kind of molecular level and just the level of these organisms, realistically, how we respond and how we react is all linked to how we all behave when we compare other organisms. The virus itself is an organism, we're an organism, how we're socially distancing, how we're behaving with our ecosystem is all linked together. And then there's the question about how we respond to this for the future. So there's also an element of talking about this in terms of evolution. And how do these ideas all come together? Okay, so we talked about the content that you're going to be learning, the bits of information, but that's only kind of one side of what you want to consider when you're studying A-level biology. It's important to know that you'll be assessed through 3 papers that happen at the end of year 13. So the 3 papers can only be sat at the end. It's terminal assessment. Each paper is 2 hours long, and they're each worth almost a third of the paper. Paper 1 covers all of the stuff from year 12. Paper 2 covers the stuff from year 13, but we'll go back and include some of the kind of core ideas from year 12. And then paper 3 is like a synoptic paper that will cover all of the content, but actually is more focused on checking your understanding of practical techniques and critical analysis of data. And one of the things that it will include is an essay, and that essay will be 25 marks, and it's one essay that you get to choose from 2 different titles, but really they're testing your ability to apply your understanding to a range of topics. So take a theme and relate it to all biology. So a little bit like I was talking about coronavirus and it linking to a few different areas. So if that's how you're going to be assessed, it's important these assessments are rigorous, because the kind of, degrees that you might go on to study or career options that you might study following this really rely on understanding that you have a good understanding of the knowledge, but also of your skills. And I'll talk about the skills a little bit more in a second. But, possible degrees that you could go on to study, are in the field of things like biology, psychology. We have a lot of students who like to pair up A-level biology with sport qualifications with a view to going on to sport science at university, and that actually works really well because our A-level biology course has a really great understanding of the human body as a part of it. So there's lots of ways in which you could go on further. And different careers that you would definitely need A-level biology for, from pharmacologists, research scientists. I just wanted to kind of laugh at the fact that the A-level biology leaflet came with a picture of this guy and girl studiously looking down a microscope. But just remember that actually biology isn't just looking down microscopes. You do learn to look down microscopes, but actually, A-level biology could lead to careers like being a marine biologist, or even studying the rainforest, depending on what you actually wanted to go on and do. A-level biology is a very flexible course, mostly because universities like it because it shows your analytical skills and it shows your ability to understand data and explain it. And that's really widely applicable to things even outside of biology. So with that in mind, the course doesn't just teach you lots of stuff. It also helps to build your skills. It wants to get you to think like a scientist and behave like a scientist. So one key element of A-level biology is that you have to have a really deep competence and confidence in practical skills. Okay, so practical skills are really important, and practical is really at the heart of A-level biology. But so is kind of an ethical understanding of practicals and the use of data and the use of science. How does science impact our economy? How does science impact our society? And I think that's something that's also being really reflected in discussions of coronavirus and lockdowns, and looking at how different elements of science and modelling and understanding that data has an impact on decisions that have a real actual impact on people's day-to-day lives. So A-level biology is designed to really help you come to terms with those ideas too. So practicals, I said it was really important, and it is. The A-level biology specification will be testing your ability to use certain apparatus and techniques. This is important because when you go to university to study science, they want to know that you have the skills to work in a university level laboratory. So this forms a part of the A-level that isn't necessarily fully assessed in the exams. There are questions on practical techniques in the exams, but there is an additional component called the practical endorsement. And to achieve your practical endorsement, you have to demonstrate the ability to use certain apparatus and do certain techniques, from using a microscope to things like producing serial dilutions or using complex quantitative equipment like a colorimeter. So there will be practicals that you are assessed during to check that you are able to fulfill those A&T demands. What I would say is that don't worry about it, that the practical endorsement sits alongside your A-level. So whilst universities look for you to have practical endorsement, should you not pass your practical endorsement, it doesn't actually affect your grade as such. It's not going to have an impact on your grade, but it is something that universities expect. And to be honest, so long as you are punctual and you turn up on time and you complete all of your work, most students find the practical endorsement is something that they easily complete over the course of the year, over the 2 years. So I've spoken about A-level biology. I've talked about the content that you'll be covering. I've talked about the key skills that you would develop. I've talked about how that relates to the things from the future. And realistically, now it's over to you guys. And if you're interested in studying A-level biology, you can complete the pack that I have put up with this video that is called Getting a Head Start on AS Level Biology, because it's about all of the initial ideas that you would learn in A-level biology. Now, a lot of it is at GCSE level with just a little bit of a push extra into A-level. This is important because, as I've said, all of these ideas build on top of each other. So your understanding from GCSE needs to be really solid. So I would thoroughly recommend spending some time this summer completing all of this work, and then you can give it to me at the end of the summer holidays, and I will mark it all and I'll give you some feedback so that you're going into your A-levels really strong with regards to making sure that you're moving forwards. Okay, well, it's been lovely talking to you guys about A-level biology. I hope that was useful, and I hope that it's given you an idea of what you might find in A-level biology. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Okay, thanks, bye.